Welcome to Chai Pe Kharcha, where we have conversations on personal finance among four NRI professionals working at tech firms. Think of these like water cooler chats you have at the office. Only this time, you will have Ishan, Madhvesh, Rohit, and Siddharth as colleagues you will be listening into. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. We are not financial experts. The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult with a qualified financial professional if you need financial advice. Welcome back. We will continue from where we left off in the last episode. Hope you enjoy the show.
So now that you have two properties in India and in different countries, how are you managing these properties back home?
So that's where your friends and your social circle plays a big picture, right? I do have a couple of acquaintances who worked with me when I was in India, who took care of my family, who took care of everybody. They're the keepers of the property. And so anything happens, the first thing I get a call, oh God, this happened. Those kind of things. I get to hear it. I try to, and also keep your tenants in a very nice note, right? I mean, they leave you, they still are able to reach you. That's a great thing. So always be available. Availability and listening is the key thing.
Okay, perfect. So we've covered your journey while you were in India. We've covered the investments you've done while you were there. Now you've moved to Prague. Let's talk about the city. How have you enjoyed your move to Prague? What it triggered it? How did it all come about? What were the issues you faced? The visa situation, I'm sure it took some time.
It was very funny, right? My company said, we're moving this role now to the US or to the Czech Republic because we have a hub in the Czech Republic right now. They asked me, do you want to move to the US or do you want to move to Prague? And I'm not a great fan of the United States in terms of the way it is structured. It's all lights, glory, and that as a person, it doesn't align with me. It's not a culture that aligns with me. It's not the way I grew up. So I think that was one thing. Check. And then my kids were saying, hey, it was my daughter. She came and told me, I want to move with you. And it was a discussion that I was having at home where I was telling, hey, this role is moving to Prague. And I like my job and I'm not quitting it and I'm not trying to hunt for a job. And people said, okay. This was the discussion. It was just an okay. And my daughter said, okay, this means I don't have to worry about the competition that we have in India, which if I can move with you. I said, okay, smart, very smart. And my son said, she goes, I go with you. End of discussion. And my husband was looking at me like, okay, so where does that leave me? Am I going with you guys? I tried to negotiate for an insurance and they said, you're okay. Your kids are great because they come attached to you. But in Europe, we don't have a rule of extending the insurance to your spouse or to you. So that was a deal breaker. We still not moved here. This happened very fast. We were having this discussion in April and my boss said, when do you want to move? I said, start of the school year because I don't want to be paying for school in India and in Czech Republic. So you do a really big huddled research along with a lot of other work that was happening. And I say, okay, we're moving. I got the visa appointment mid-May, visa mid-June. And on the 31st of June, I flew out. 1.5 months straight. Moved to a different continent. My kids enjoyed the longest summer possible. Bangaloreans are not wired to heat. We cannot tolerate heat. So I fall sick if I go back to Chennai. I fall sick if I go back to my parents' place because the heat is something that I'm not able to tolerate. So we moved to Prague, and it is the hottest summer Europe has seen. We land and Bangalore did have rains. So we had 6 months of summer. The kids were at home for 6 months. And that was the most difficult period of my life. And also, it's weird in terms of what we were trying to do. And also, the rules in Prague is you have to work. So your salary comes in only on the 15th of every month for the previous month that you've worked. So, which is a thing. And I'm in a new country, in a new continent. I put my savings because I understood my daughter's going to high school now. So my kids are not going to be able to survive school that's provided by the Czech government because neither one of them speak Czech.
Yeah.
And learning math and science in Czech is going to be real fun for the older one. So I said, okay, I can manage. Let me put my retirement on hold for a couple more years. And I took a plunge of sending them to a European international convent. And the fees, I don't even want to talk about it.
We do want you to talk about it. So we break this down. Now that you've moved, I'm quite impressed that the visa came in that quickly. I thought, given that the Czech Republic is part of the EU, doesn't that could create a bigger problem or time zone or a different?
Well, the number of blue cards that Czech Republic issues is like 100 in a year.
Okay.
And the entire population of Czech Republic is 1/3 of population of Bangladesh.
Okay.
I still see traffic jams here. I still see road rages here. But yeah, it's a beautiful, dreamy city to live in.
Okay. So let's break it down into expenses. What kind of expenses can someone expect if they're moving to Prague? Like, what are the rents? Like, what's the biggest expense for you? What's the next biggest expense? And what is it that someone can save? What's a good salary to move there with if you're moving alone or if you're moving with kids?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you all of those things. So if you're moving with kids and if you want them to be in an English school, you have to spend. I'm spending for 2 of my kids an international European education, and it's expensive. That's the biggest expense. So to give you a perspective, it costs more than it costed for me to buy the first flat in a year. Okay, so close to 25, 26 lakhs is what in Indian rupees is what I'm spending for their education at the moment. If you're getting into, more schools, the average school fees is around 350 to 400K Czech crowns.
Okay.
And 1 Czech crown is roughly 3.5 to 4 rupees. That's the conversion rate. Yeah.
Okay. And what are the rents like? What can someone expect to pay if they're moving?
Oh,
to Prague?
it's like a standard European rent where I spend around 1,000 euros for my 3KK, which is a 2 BHK flat. Plus energy consumption, which became super expensive post the Ukrainian war. But otherwise, it used to be really cheap. Now paying, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 in terms of a monthly average energy consumption, which is not bad if you're going to compare to your neighboring states in Germany and things like that.
So was there any expense that surprised you when you moved? Apart from the schooling, I get that probably was pretty big.
Oh, that was the biggest thing. And a surprise expense, I would say, getting your driving license. I'm still considering if I want to take it up or not because it seems like too much of a hassle. And I have to spend close to 100K. And it's ridiculous because I'm not sure if it's worth it at this point of time.
But do you
So
need a
obviously-
car? Do you need a car to get
No.
around? Okay.
That's what I was getting to. If you can live with walking for a bit, say 300 meters, 400 meters, this is a great place. You have a tram, you have metro connecting to every possible line in Prague, you have buses. And the biggest selling point for me was children below 15 travel for free. My kids have discovered the love of getting onto a tram without a parental monitoring, and they just go around the city and come back, which is great. If the same thing had to happen in India, 75% of the population would not have to pay for the transport. So,
Yeah, I think it has happened in one of the states where they've made travel.
Karnataka.
Yeah.
Karnataka. And I have traveled in a bus just for the fun of it because it's free.
Right. Okay. So what are the other aspects of your life that have changed now? You're there as a single parent with your kids. How is it managing that? Do you need a babysitter, or do you need to find a place to, if you have to go into the office or travel for work? How does that aspect of life work out?
One of the things I've always told women who I have mentored, just like financial discipline, your network of people is very, very. So you need to find the right set of people who would be there for you and for your kids, no matter what happens.
No, sorry.
Swear. So you need to find those right kind of people. I have made my own bunch of people who would be more than happy to babysit because I'm more than happy to babysit their kids. So it's a two-way street. And as a mother, you need to have mothers as friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but when you're talking about a community, and this is again, I'm sure, an aspect people think about, do you have a large enough, say, Indian community there, or is it the locals that you're talking to?
So Indian community is up and coming right now in the Czech Republic. And it's funny because I have a lot of Czechs as my friends.
Okay.
Who don't speak English. It's the way it works. So I speak English. They don't speak. We don't have any common language, but they're more than happy to help me, and I'm more than happy to help them.
Okay.
So don't ask me how that works. I'm still amazed by the fact that I have friends who don't speak English. We don't have anything in common, but we're friends. But we're meeting up on coffee dates, and we're taking care of each other's kids and things like that. And from a food perspective as well, my kids are spice eaters. My son especially is a proper spice eating kid. He doesn't mind the Czech food, which is okay. I mean, something's funny, but yeah, it's working.
So which reminds me, you said something which was very interesting, and this is just for my, I might have asked this question before we've spoken. How many languages do you speak?
I think 8, 9. I've lost count of it, to be very honest.
List them, Gayathri, list them.
Okay, English, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Hindi, French, English, German, and what else? What else? Bengali. Yeah, I'm still trying to think. So yeah.
Okay, so
Nice
you've
diversity, very nice you put it.
yes.
No, I actually don't had any of the languages in my portfolio. But yeah, it was fun part of growing up as a community, as a person, as a daughter of a bank guy. You were in a new place, new location every 3 years or every 5 years, and you're learning different languages. My kids don't speak as many languages as I do. Unfortunately, they barely. Their Tamil, I would say, is subpar. Their Hindi is not bad. Their English is again average. So I'm not sure what language they're speaking. Probably Gen Alpha. So yeah.
They'll have a new language come up by the time they've grown up. So
Yeah, that's what I said, Gen Alpha, because there are the words and the things that makes me look like I'm from the age of dinosaurs. Yeah.
So, and Madhvesh, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. Just generally from a life perspective, not necessarily. I think the last aspect we would cover is investments. Now that you're in Prague, how you're managing them, if there's something new. But since we were talking about community and the life you're building there, anything that has positively or negatively surprised you about moving to Prague? Not financially, from a community or living perspective.
It's not a surprise that this is a drunk nation.
Okay.
And it was a shocker for me because every time I travel, I take a train or something, it doesn't matter the time of the day, I see drunk people. And it is a real big surprise that, and also Czech Republic has a reputation of being the highest alcohol consumption across Europe. So, and also weed is legal here. So that was another thing that was, and also at risk children. I'm currently, associated with a couple of hospitals and I'm trying to teach them an English class and things like that. So there are so many children who are going through depression. And those children at the age of 16 are living alone or, they have a parent, but they're the ones who's doing the major chores of the house, which was surprising because in India, we're cocooned, we're coddled, and that's how you were raised. And if you look at the United States, we know about the US and we know about UK, but when you move to mainland Europe, you kind of feel there will be a little bit of, so that was another shocker. And you can spank your children here. So for people, for Indians who want to spank their children, who don't want to be judged,
Okay.
Czech Republic, you can spank your children. And if you don't spank, there will be a Czech grandmother who would tell you to spank your children for acting out.
So there's something for everyone. There's alcohol for people who want to drink. There's weed for people who want to smoke. And there's, if your kids misbehave, you can feel free to teach them a lesson. Teach them a lesson.
Yeah, and you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be because I've seen a lot of.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from because it is a disciplining kids is a problem in certain countries. So
Yeah.
I get that. But wish you had something.
Yeah, so my question was more towards the safety in general in Czech, because I know like there are countries, like, safety is one of the aspects which Indians generally look when they want to move out. So like, how is that in Czech?
Hey, it's safer than the United States. Let's just put it that way. There's very severe gun control. And I know we were Prague got into the news for shooting.
Yeah.
A month ago or something that happened. That was a very isolated incident. And it was a art student. And, he had a mental breakdown episode where he just randomly found a gun and he started shooting. But it's a very, very safe country. Crime rate or pickpocketing, it was a surprise because I lost my office phone in Prague. It was an office phone, so it didn't really bother me much because I didn't have any data and we couldn't remotely erase it. All that great. But pickpocketing happens in certain places. You need to be, and I think it happens even in France, in Paris. It happens in London, near the London Eye, or in New York, and it's not very uncommon. The Czechs are not rude; they're courteous. They don't speak English, so they might come off as rude, but they're one of the sweetest people I've met. It's easy, and again, they're very judgy with your skin color. So they look at me like, okay, she's dirty. So yeah, they also have a history of being beaten up by the Germans, by the Russians, by the Ukrainians, so they tend to come off a little protective. But if you're able to break those barriers and find a couple of people like I did, happy to talk to me in sign language and ready to take care of my kids, yeah, you won the jackpot, I would say.
You mentioned the fact that when you do travel on public transport, you at whatever hour in the day there are people who are drunk. There's alcohol consumption and some amount of weed out there. Does that affect safety in any way? Do you feel worried at any amount of time, or it's
Not
they're
really.
keeping to themselves?
They keep to themselves, and that's it. So it's like Amsterdam, or it's like Belgium, that matter. So yeah.
Okay.
But again, alcohol consumption, it's pretty cheap. water is expensive. Water is €2 here if you have to buy, and beer is not even
Yeah.
a euro.
Yeah, that was my experience the first time I went to Europe, and I realized buying bottled water in the supermarket was more expensive than buying. And I remember the brand was Beck's beer, some German beer that you could get, which was cheaper than bottled
Mhm.
water at that
That's
day. This
what's
is
the
years
good.
ago.
It's still the same. It's still the same. One of the other things that I have started doing is carry your own bottle of water,
Just smart.
which is far, far, far better.
So last aspect that I want to get into, because we've taken a lot of your time, and I really do appreciate you giving your morning to us for this. So now that you're in Prague, you obviously have these investments that you have in India. A, are you keeping those investments running like the SIPs or anything? Do you still keep buying back from in India? And B, are you looking to invest into, say, anything in Prague? You mentioned real estate. So how are you looking at that? Is there anything else you're looking at while you're there? Any other European markets you're thinking of?
So yes, Czech Republic is a very open market in the sense it's up and coming market, and also the interest rates are dropping. I'm continuing to keep my investment back in India. That's always one of those first things that you did back at home, and you don't want to let go of those things. So yes, it's still there, it's still running, and all the money that I'm making out of whatever rent and other things that's coming in, it's just self-sufficient and it's paying for itself. I'm not really doing anything much with my bank account. That was one thing. And from a Czech Republican investment perspective, yes, I've started actively looking into the real estate market. And the first thing that you need to do is build a trust for your children, which is like, that's what I've learned from the smart Trumps of the world. And, where they're not generational wealth. Paris Hilton has generational wealth. Trump doesn't. He built it and he was smart, and he's given it to your children. And one of the things you need to understand is, even in India, there might be a law which is coming pretty soon, probably, is your father's house, if you inherit it, you might end up paying inheritance tax, which is a very significant number if you talk about European Union. If you talk about the developed European Union, when I say developed, it's France, Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium, and things like that. And the developing nations in the European Union, they might implement it anytime given it's EU, and rules just change like restaurant. At the moment, you don't have it in Czech Republic. This is a very, very interesting market in terms of real estate, because one of the things obviously I've seen is the amount of rent I pay here. That's like 1,200 euros a thing per month. The EMI is coming to the same thing. Obviously, if I'm able to raise the capital for it and
Right.
below 35, you need to show them just 10%, 15% as a down payment for a flat. And I think 20% or 25% if you are above 35. And I obviously fall into the above 35 bracket. So I'm trying to muster up some money to buy a house here. And the houses here are beautiful. It's just breathtaking. So yes, it's a win for me, if at all I decide. And also it can be rented out on Airbnb or, on various other places where it's easy to just have a short-term rental, and you save that money and pay back as EMI. So that works. And the retirement age in European Union is remarkably high. It is 67 years at the moment.
So you still have a good time period to go. Are you looking at any stocks? Are you looking at bonds? Any other kind of investments there in the EU?
Here, I'm still studying the market. It's too early in the day to start talking about it. But yes, I'm looking at SIPs. The first step needs to be SIP. You should never get in stocks. But again, I'm waiting for the bubble to burst. The bullish market, I think it will have a crash sometime in 2024. And what the reports are saying, that's what the Financial Times is saying. I'm just waiting for the day to crash and then probably pick it up from there.
Okay. How's the capital gains? Sorry, last question. How's the capital gain situation in Czech Republic?
I think that it's taxed at 21%. It's one of the lowest taxed country, by the way, barring Luxembourg. Luxembourg is, again, super expensive. Switzerland has a very high tax rate, but Czech Republic has a 21% tax rate and you get great rebates if you have children. And
Okay.
Germany, if you don't want to pay taxes, have 3 kids. That's it. The logic is that.
You have 3 kids in Germany, you don't pay any taxes?
Yeah.
So if anyone's listening and they want to move to Germany, you know what you need. That's one way to start. But
Yeah.
that's great. That's great insight into living in the EU, living in Prague. Great insight into your investment philosophy. Thanks so much for spending this time with us. It's been amazing talking to you.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you guys as well.
Maybe when you do start investing into real estate in Prague and stocks in Prague, we'll get you back to talk about that in particular.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.